I am so excited to have our guest on here on Entertainment Extra with Joe Crawford on RemicTV.com. It's been the hype around the Niagara region. I think it's been the hype around North America, put it that way, because at first it was declined, then it was accepted, and all this stuff going on because this gentleman here is going to risk his life on walking a tightrope across Niagara Falls, and he's here with us before even doing it, because I don't know if I could do it afterwards with him. Oh, I think we would. But Nik Wallenda. Nik, how are you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thanks. Now, first of all, I have to ask, and please do not take this personal, but are you nuts?
You know, that's probably one of the most popular questions I get asked to me. Absolutely not. You know, part of the history of our family is we started back in the 1780s. Performing over in Bohemia, actually, eventually to Germany. In 1928, we came over to perform in the United States for Ringling Brothers Circus. So my family's been doing this for over 200 years and 7 generations. And to be honest, it's just kind of normal to us. This is what we do.
The Wallenda's lifestyle is walking the ropes. And now you're in the States there, and you're very famous with setting world records. And actually, the latest record was maybe Atlantis in June 2010. Tell me a little bit about that one first.
Well, in Atlantis, I actually rode a bicycle between the 2 main towers in the Bahamas. Wow. I was about 260 plus feet above the ground without any safety devices, and we rigged a 5/8-inch wire rope between the 2 towers. It was about 150 feet in distance, and I rode from one of the main towers to another.
Now, is that just a regular bike?
That's correct. It's actually a Stock Specialized is the name of the company that makes it. It's a pretty well-known brand around the world. They make a lot of racing bikes and such, but it's a standard stock bicycle. The only thing we do, or a bike, but the only thing we do is we take the tires off of the rims and we actually lock the front end. We take the handlebars off and lock it so it can't turn left or right, and that's all that we do.
Wow, unbelievable. Now, your family has been doing this. And I'm wondering, is the generations after you going to continue in this? Do you have kids who are very interested in this?
You know, that's yet to be seen. I do have 3 children. There's currently 16 family members still performing, so I think there's probably a pretty good chance that we'll be carrying on. But I do have 3 children. I've got a 14-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 9-year-old, all 3 of them which already walk the wire. However, I don't know whether they'll decide to carry it on or not. That's really up to them, and it'll be their decision in the end.
Now, what age did you start walking the wire?
I started walking the wire basically as soon as I could walk on the ground. At about 2 years old, in our backyard, we have a 2-foot wire. It's about 2 feet off the ground. And my mom would grab my hand and help me walk back and forth. And that's how it all started. And my kid's the same way. Hey, Daddy, I want to try what you're doing. It looks like fun. And, you know, here we are. We're all wire walkers.
That's awesome. Now, where other than, we'll get to Niagara Falls in a little bit, but where other places like Atlantis have you done? You've done the Ringling Brothers, the family has, and of course performing in the Ringling Circus. But where else have you done big events like this?
You know, I've performed all over the world, including in Japan in 2001. I broke a world record with my family doing the 8-person pyramid on the high wire, but really touring all over the world. And quite a bit here in the U.S. That is where I'm based, in the United States. And, you know, a lot of amusement parks. Me and my wife have a production company called Nik Wallenda Productions, where we produce shows, basically entertainment venues for theaters around the country. And we have a couple touring shows as well. So, you know, in our generations of family doing this, there's not many places we haven't performed, to be honest.
Well, that's awesome. And all the information you can find on Nik's website, nikwallenda.com, and it's NIKWALLENDA.com. That's how you spell Nik Wallenda. And I think I hopefully followed. I tried to search you up on Twitter there because I saw the Niagara Falls Mayor Jim Diodati wrote a comment, and I hope I followed the right Nik Wallenda. There was 3 of you on there, so I'm like, I don't know. But you are on Twitter as well, Nik, at Nik Wallenda, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Nik Wallenda, and as well as Facebook.
Awesome. Now, Nik, let's get into the meat and potatoes here now, because we're in Ontario here. The studio's in Toronto, and I'm actually from the Niagara Falls area. First of all, why Niagara Falls?
I think the lure of it is it's one of the, if not the most beautiful natural wonder in the world. And when I go through any city or any country, I look around for locations that are unique, that would be an amazing event, a beautiful photo opportunity, to be honest. And of course, Niagara Falls is one of them. The dream came about when I was about 6 years old. My family was performing in Buffalo, New York, and they brought me and my sister down to see the falls. And I remember the first time I saw them, going, wow, how cool would it be to stretch a wire from one side to another? And little did I know that at the age of 33, I'll be fulfilling that dream of mine.
Wow.
But that's really where it all started. And I tried to build a name for myself. I've broken 6 Guinness World Records since the age of 6, as well as done many major feats with my family, including recreating the 7-person pyramid and then breaking that world record with the 8-person pyramid on the wire. So it was about building a name for Nik Wallenda. The Wallenda name is very well known around the world for these sorts of events. However, the Nik part, not so much. So that was my goal, was build a name for myself. And then once I had a name for myself and a long, strong track record, that I would come in and seek permission from both the United States government as well as the Canadian government.
Okay, so now with that said in mind then, Niagara Falls, New York, the United States, the first time when you proposed this, they were on board, not a problem. But unfortunately, there was a hitch that there was in the Canadian side, and they didn't approve. And I know that they say doing stunts in Niagara Falls is against the law, because a long time ago there was a man who went over a barrel and all that stuff. Now, what was their reasoning behind the first time around of saying, you know what, Nik, sorry, we don't want you to do this?
I think a lot of things were major factors in that. I think they probably had a lot of applications. Actually, they've told me applications of people wanting to do this. There is an anti-stunting law that's been in effect for over 100 years. It's really more of a mandate that the Parks Commission is supposed to hold. Now, that mandate actually reads without written consent. There's no stunting without written consent of the Niagara Parks Commission. So we went for that written consent. Everything we do, we try to do legit and legal. There are some people that do it in the middle of the night, and they'll rig a wire, and then they'll walk across and take it down, and they get arrested, and they get out of jail the next day. And that's just not how we work. Our family's never been that way. We're very much about integrity. So we thought, we're going to do this the right way.
Yeah.
I also had an economic impact study done by a company there in Toronto called Enigma Research. And Enigma Research did an economic study that showed that with a legacy effect, which means with all the TV coverage and such, we'll bring about $120 million of added revenue to that area within 5 years. That's quite a big economic impact.
Hopefully you get a cut.
Of the event's about $20 million. So we went there with that. We were offered to meet with them. Well, we asked permission to meet with them, and they granted us permission at one of their commission meetings. And they normally only allow 5 minutes to present. And they said, well, this is unique, so we're going to allow you 10 minutes to present. Well, as you can imagine, to present something like this the nature of this, there's quite a bit involved. And even to present a $120 million economic impact study in 10 minutes is nearly impossible.
Yeah.
So we spoke our 10 minutes, and they said, thank you very much. We'll get back to you soon. Within 2 weeks, I had a phone call, and the phone call said, you know what, Nik, unfortunately, we've decided not on your event only, but just the fact that we're not even going to look into your event because we do not allow stunts, and we're going to stick with our mandate. So at that point, I'm a very positive person, and I thought, there's always, where there's a will, there's a way. And my great-grandfather taught us for generations to never give up. So I got a call from MPP, the local MPP. His name's Kim Crater.
Yep.
Gave me a call, and he said, Nik, I happen to be the assistant to the Minister of Tourism, Minister Chan, and I think it would be a great idea for you to come up and meet with him. In which I said, absolutely, I would love to. And within 2 weeks, I had a meeting with him and a bunch of his staffers behind closed doors. And that meeting went very, very well. In that meeting, he explained to me that he did not have the power to overturn the Parks Commission, but he did have the power to say, hey, guys, let's take a deeper look at this. You only allowed 10 minutes. Let's spend some time on this, dig in deep, and see if this is something that would benefit not only the Parks Commission, who's had their share of financial difficulties in the past 10 years.
Yes.
So let's give this some more thought. I think this might be great for all of us. And at that point, they did. Within a couple more weeks, they had another meeting scheduled. I think it was about a month at that point. And they called me up, asked me to come back, and I did. And at that point, we were granted permission unanimously across the board. Everybody agreed in favor of approving this event.
Wow. So now your high dream, and literally high dream, has come true to do that. Now, when is the date expected that you're going to be walking across Niagara Falls?
You know, we don't have an exact date. And one of the challenges with getting a date is there are so many arms involved with this. You know, it's not as though I'm talking with one person, which generally, when I do an event like this, it's one event coordinator that says, you know, we get together in a room and we make the decision. Well, of course, we're dealing with two governments. We're also dealing with TV networks that want to cover it and such, as well as a lot of the local business people that see it as a huge benefit to them. So we're trying to find a date that's mutually agreeable. We're being told two things. June is a good time to do it, or the end of August, beginning of September are a good time to do it. So, and that we're hearing pretty much across the board. So to narrow it down, there's not really a way to narrow it more specific than that, but it's either going to be in June, which if it's going to be in June, we need to decide soon, and I'm hoping to know. I would love to know 3 weeks ago myself, of course.
Yeah.
No one wants to know more than me. And, you know, many people ask me that question. I said, I wish I had the control to say it's going to be on this date because it would have been done a long time ago. So hopefully we'll have that answer very, very soon. But it's looking like it'll either be towards the end of June or towards the end of August at this point.
Okay, now then, I want to go through a setup here now. Now, the wire, because I'm trying to picture Niagara Falls. You're going to have the wire from the Canadian side to the American side, and whereabouts across the falls are you walking?
Well, you know, the Horseshoe Fall, of course, has that name because it's the shape of a horseshoe. And there's no way for me to rig a wire that shape or a half moon. So what I'll do is I'll start on either the U.S. or the Canadian side. The direction has not been determined, and that really has to do with the weather of that day. We have meteorologists that are coming on board now that are going to tell us wind speed so I can train properly for one. But also the direction which I walk. But we'll start on Goat Island and we'll end at Table Rock. I'll cross directly over the falls. No one in the history of tightrope walking at the falls. There is a history, believe it or not, of it. 13 wire walkers crossed the gorge, but none of them even started on Goat Island, which tells us that they were at least a kilometer downstream. So I'll be the first person in the world to actually walk directly over. But it'll be very close to the visitor center on Table Rock and very close to the visitor center on the U.S. side on Goat Island.
Now, what tools do you use other than the wire to assist you to walk across the falls?
Just a hammer and a couple screwdrivers. You know, it's very, very complex. It actually starts with two cranes. One thing that we strive for, and we have a lot of pride in the fact that we leave no environmental impact whatsoever when we do this stuff. So that means we can't drill into the ground for anything. Everything sets directly above ground. So in order to do that, we have cranes that come in, just like a crane that you would use to put up a building. We'll park a crane on the Canadian side as well as the U.S. side, and that's how it'll start. Once those are in place, we'll actually have a helicopter take a rope from one side to the other. And from that rope, it goes through a series of machines. They're called tensioners and pullers. One pulls while the other one holds tension on the other side, so that this wire will never come in contact with the falls. It'll never come in contact with the water. It'll actually be strung in the air the entire time from one side to the other. Wow. It'll start with the rope, and it will go up larger and larger until we get a 2-inch diameter wire rope that weighs about 8 pounds a foot. And overall, it'll weigh about 20 tons. And we've got to get that across without touching the environment whatsoever, which is quite a complex process.
Now, you mentioned weather, and that's going to be a big, huge factor, especially with the wind. Or like, how do you train for that? Or do you just like, you know what, we postpone it, we'll do it the next day? Or do you
There's a lot of training that goes involved. I also have a TV series coming out on the Discovery Channel. It's called Life on a Wire. And in that series, we do a lot of the science and engineering behind what I do. And one factor of that is wind speeds. So I've trained actually in 90-mile-an-hour winds down low to the ground, as well as 60-mile-an-hour gusts. So for this event, we'll actually rig this cable the exact same distance, just lower to the ground. So it's just off the ground in the middle. And at that point, that's the loosest point of the cable. We'll actually have wind machines there. We have meteorologists telling us the worst weather the end of June or the end of August, whenever we're going to do it, the worst case wind speeds on record. And we'll train for the worst case, as well as we'll have a heavy, heavy mist sprayed in the air at the same time, so that I'm prepared for the heavy mist as well as the wind. And I know the worst case, so when I get out in the middle of that wire, I'm prepared for anything. And I can stay calm and collective knowing that I've already trained well for it.
Nick, to do that, to stay calm and collective, Is there a meditation that you do, or how do you keep yourself calm? Because normal human reaction would be like, oh my God, like anxiety, stress.
Yep. No, part of that comes with just the trait and the fact that I've done it for my entire life. I started walking a wire at 2, so it's very natural to me. And I've trained and I've walked in high winds and such. So it's really about the training that leads up to it, that I know that I'm prepared for the worst case, and I can go into it confidently knowing, hey, if I experience the worst case, I've stayed on the wire, it hasn't been an issue, and stay completely calm. The only ritual that I have is I say a prayer, I give my wife and kids a hug and a kiss, and see them on the other side.
Oh, now, I guess then with, you mentioned before when you did a tightrope walk against back in Atlantis, there was no net, and I'm assuming there's going to be no net in Niagara Falls. It's just going to be the falls as your drop.
That is correct. That is very correct. It's nearly impossible to rig a net over that. Just the cable alone is much of a challenge. But, even everything that comes into mind is, even birds and the safety of birds. And if you have a net, they can get tangled in that net. So we really try to make things as safe as possible for everyone, not just us, but Mother Nature as well.
Have you ever had a close call?
Not really. I'm an entertainer, so if you watch my YouTube videos, you'll see a couple videos where you're like, wow, that was a close call. Well, that's kind of what I do as a living, is try to make people appear that, have that appearance that it's a close call. However, it's about training. Any close calls I've had are 2 feet off the ground, and that's why we get rid of all of that stuff down low so that we know when we go up high, we're more than prepared.
Nik Wallenda is going to be walking across Niagara Falls, whether it's in end of June, whether it's the end of August, and you can definitely hear it on the news or the radio stations here on Remix TV when that's going to happen, or even on Nik's website, nikwallenda.com. I'm pretty sure you're going to have that on your website when you'll be in Niagara Falls, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
And
it's much anticipated around the world. And just to speak to that, as you said, definitely the country's watching. It really is the world. I've had over 500 interviews in the last 4 weeks around the world. They come in, I'll do 20 to 30 a day, nonstop. I'm doing a lot of media because the whole world's watching. I mean, we were on the front page of the Ethiopian Times, if that tells you how far out it's spread. And everywhere from the front page of the Times of London to the biggest paper in Australia to the biggest paper in Greece. So everybody's watching this event around the world.
Nik, this is your goal, your dream to do as a tightrope walker, the king of the rope. After that, where do you go from Niagara Falls?
I already have permits to walk across the Grand Canyon, which no one in the world's ever done. That's in the works, as well as I'm working on permits in Turkey right now to walk from one continent to another. So there's many, many more things in the works. And part of my TV series on the Discovery Channel, we're talking about maybe you and Nik Wallenda walks around the world, where I'll walk around several different natural environments that are known everywhere.
Awesome. And do we know when that's going to air on the Discovery Channel?
It'll air after the Niagara Falls walk. That'll kind of be the lead into it.
Beautiful. NikWallenda.com. He's going to be risking his life, doing what he does best, walking the tightrope across Niagara Falls from the United States to Canada. I sure hope you have your passport to do that.
Yeah, well, I do.
All right. Nik, thank you very much. I hope to talk with you after the event that you do and get your eye view and your experience after walking across Niagara Falls.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on.
You're very welcome. Thanks for watching Entertainment Extra with Joe Crawford and our guests. Thank you again to Nik Wallenda. Keep it tuned here on RemixTV.com for all your great shows here on Remix TV.